All right, what we're working with today is understanding inequalities in one triangle. There's two main topics. We're going to first start off by deciding whether something is a triangle, and I'm going to take you to a website so you can kind of see this investigation that I'm going to lead you through. Okay, so here's a triangle. We have the red side, the blue side, and the black side. And what happens is if I drag this around, I'll have a triangle everywhere I go, except when I go right here. When I go right here, I don't have a triangle. And what we have to recognize is these side relationships. And when I add these two numbers together, 4.57 plus 6.27, it equals 10.84. So when the two small pieces add up to the big piece, I don't have a triangle. The only way that I can actually have a triangle is if I move it up or down, and when I move it up, the two numbers add up. 6 plus 7 is 13. They're bigger than 10. And if I move it down, even if I only move it slightly down, 4.7 plus 6.1, that's 10.8. And then if we look at the ones, that's 10.86. So that's bigger than this too. So the only time we can't have a triangle is when our two small sides equal the third side, or if my two sides didn't even make the whole thing. The only way you can have a triangle is if the two smaller sides are bigger than the third side. And that's the case for all of them. If I dragged these here, the only way I have a triangle is if I have numbers that are bigger than that red side. Okay, so that's the first rule we have, is that when you have a triangle, two sides have to be bigger than the third side. So we tend to look to see that two small sides are bigger than the biggest side. Okay, so from looking at that triangle, what we should know is that the two sides have to be bigger than the big side. And it's really any side. So usually what we'll do is we'll pick our two smallest numbers and add them together, and they have to be a bit bigger. They can't be equal, because remember, if they were equal, they formed a straight line. They wouldn't go up and form a triangle. Okay, so let's look and see if we can do these problems. Remember the rule, the two smallest sides have to be bigger than the big side. So I look at my two smallest sides for number 1, that's 5 and 10. And I check, is 5 plus 10 bigger than 12? Yeah, that's 15. So that's a yes. For number 2, 7 and 10 are my two smallest sides. 7 plus 10, well, that's only 17. That is not bigger, so this is not a triangle. These would not connect. Number 3, 5 plus 3, well, I have 8, but that would be just a straight line. They wouldn't peak and go up, so this is also a no. And then the last one, 3 plus 3, well, that's 6, and yes, 6 is greater than 5, so that's a yes. For the next problems, it's a little more confusing because we need to find the third possible side. So let's say that these are my two small sides. So then 10 plus 15 would have to be bigger than something. Well, that's going to be 25. Now let's say that this is actually my big side, and so x plus 10 would have to be bigger than 15, and so x would have to be greater than 5. And so my answers have to be between 5 and 25. So if you notice, what I did was I added them and I subtracted right here, and that's how I found my range. So for this one, I would subtract them and add them. And again, because if these are the two small ones, they have to be bigger than 16. But then if this is the big one, then 4 plus something has to be bigger than 12, and that something's 8. All right, last one, same thing. We add them and we get 23. So together, these have to be bigger than 23. And then the last one is that they have to be between 7 and 23. All right, the next type of problems, we're going to look at another simulation on the computer so you can kind of get a visual of what's going on. Okay, what I found here is that we have a triangle, and we know that they're going to add up to 180. That's what this says. This is the side, and then these are some side measures. Now, if you notice, if I drag it, things happen. Now, let's go ahead and see what happens when I click on order size. Oh, we don't want that. Let's color code this. So the red is opposite the red angle because it opens to the red angle. And the C is opposite the purple angle. And the B is opposite the black. And so if I make my black angle smaller, so my black angle is pretty small, my side is 5.5. But if I open this doorway up, the side has just gotten bigger. So the bigger the angle is, the bigger the side is. Just like if I move this side here, the B gets smaller, so the side gets smaller. When my angle B gets bigger, it gets longer. Okay? So the rule there is that when you open an angle or close an angle, the opposite side gets smaller. Now let's look at this. Let's just start here. My longest was 68. And look, that's also the biggest number. My smallest was 46, and that's also the smallest number. So smallest angles are opposite smallest sides, and big angles are opposite big sides. Okay, so knowing what we talked about, we're going to list the sides from smallest to largest. So I have to pick my smallest angle. My smallest angle is 42, and 42 is opposite this side, which is BA. My next smallest angle is 53, which is opposite here, which is CB. And then that leaves my biggest angle, 85, to be opposite CA. All right, when we look at number 9, you should notice that something's missing. We don't know what that third angle is, so we need to find that out. So we're going to do 42 plus 34 and subtract from 180, and we get 104. And so my smallest angle right here is 34. And so that's opposite my smallest side, which is CD. And then my next smallest angle is 42, and that's opposite this side here, which is DE. And that leaves my biggest angle opposite of CE. All right, last one. Now we're listing angles. Well, it's the same idea, but I'm going for my biggest side. My biggest side is 10, and that is opposite D. So my biggest angle is angle D. Then I have 8. That's opposite angle C. And then that leaves angle E. Over here, my largest side is 5, and that is opposite angle P. Then 4.3, which is opposite of angle R, and then that leaves angle Q. So there's 2 main rules you had to learn today. The first one was that the 2 sides always have to be bigger than the third side of a triangle, any combination you try. And then we also learned that big angles are opposite big sides, and small angles are opposite small sides.